Okay, good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to the June meeting of the Savannah Chatham County Board of Education Audit Committee meeting. It's apparent we do not have a quorum in the building, and the in-person quorum is required for this to be a formal meeting. Therefore, we can take no votes or actions. However, we will proceed with an informational meeting and cover the items here. All the items that require approval or an actual vote from the committee will be moved to our scheduled meeting in August. So with that being said, I'll turn it over for the information about the audit plan for FY24.
Thank you. So the audit plan is developed as a multi-tier process. What we try to do is try to get the voice of our staff first by doing an all survey to all employees of the district. We get their feedback via this survey as any concerns or risks that they've identified during their year within our district. We also take interviews with those manager levels, principals and above, who can provide us another risk analysis from a management level, as well as putting that into our own risk matrix from an internal audit perspective, where we look at risk tolerance, we look at potential last time we've audited, as well as the cost of what the area of which has been brought to our attention. And we put those elements together, and then we identify typically the top 10 or 15, and then we give it to the governance team to vote upon. So what you have today is based off of that sequence of events that have occurred. By auditing standards, we're only required every 3 years to do this. But as we know in education, it is a shifting pendulum. And so we try to be up and current to those changes within our environment. So we conduct this every year. So to give you some understanding, we conduct performance audits. I like to clarify that. Our external auditors, which were here a few months ago, they do our financial audits, which means they conduct accounting reviews in terms of the financial department's compliance with GAAP standards. And so they conduct the financial audits. We conduct performance audits. And if you look under page 3, you should see under performance audits, really outside there is a component of compliance where you look at, the criteria or the federal, state, and local laws or policies. But at the end of the day, what we look at is the effectiveness and efficiency of which those operational functions are occurring in order to make sure that, one, management is reporting accurately and reliable, and the district is safeguarding the assets of which we are looking at, but also ensuring that the taxpayers' money are being maximized. A non-audit service is usually conducted at the request of management. These services do not come to you, but we do incorporate them within the structure of our audit plan, so you are aware that those items do occur. Those are significant in that they assist management in identifying an area of concern that they may have. We have to make sure we have our independent safeguards reviewed whenever we conduct that, to make sure that if we are to audit the process at a grander scale, that we make sure that we identify that we are not crossing over in our independence, or what we like to call our biases that we have to identify in every audit that we conduct. I wanted to provide that information to you. Again, it's an informational meeting, so I thought that was important to share. But if you go to the overall, what we're carrying over from this year is the human resource activities. I like to clarify, we are not auditing the HR department. We are auditing human resource activities, which means there are some components of HR that we are looking at, but we're also looking at those human resource activities that are occurring within the school site that management are to, such as the hiring manager, or having to discipline their staff. We're looking in the onboarding process that they have at their school sites or departments. We're looking at those human resource activities too, because that is truly part of the human resource activity program that should be existing. And the Woodville-Tompkins High School gym and auditorium, that will also be rolling over. That's our typical closeout final payment kind of review that we have always and continuously conducted for the district. Our business process reviews, I'm really excited. I think this has been the shortest list we've had in about 5 years. And most of these are follow-up, so it'll be even quicker. But as you can see, we highlighted this year 3-year follow-up, or if it's a new principal, whether we're going in. And as for the e-learning academy, we had not looked at them. We waited 2 years for them to kind of build their program before we've decided to come in and look at their area. In the East Blast and capital project audits, again, one of those closeout areas that we're looking at is the New Hampstead K-8. We've provided you a scope of what we will review. The artificial surfaces, that includes the athletic fields as well as the playground areas. This is a new adventure for us in the artificial surfaces, so we wanted to move forward and look at that. We wanted to wait for a few of the surfaces to be, within, I wouldn't say implemented, but I guess you can say in service for at least a year before we start looking at it and seeing the impact on maintenance fees, as well as the cost, and then the impact to safety. Academic audits, later on today we'll introduce the academic auditor to you, but he will be working on the audit of student support services. This is through the scope looking at the RTI process and the identification of early intervention as well as gifted education. We're going to touch on speech language pathologists. This has come up in the past 2 years through our risk assessment survey and some concerns that the employees of the district have had. So we are bringing this into our program this year. Cell phone usage in classrooms. This is a continuous concern that has been brought through our risk assessment survey. So it's going to be kind of a policy analysis as well as a cultural audit of looking at what exists out there and what controls are working, what controls are not working to assist, but really to determine if there's really an impact to that instructional environment. As for operational audits, we will be looking at the purchasing processes. It will, outside of just the normal compliance to state procurement laws, will determine if the current processes are effective and efficient in meeting the district's needs. There were some concerns that came across that sometimes the purchasing process did not get completed in a timely manner in order to utilize the funds within a fiscal year. So they were having to shift expending what they needed to do in 1 year and shift it into the next fiscal year. So we're going to look at that. As for the graduation rate, this is kind of a data review. We always have been looking at data, whether it's business process reviews and so forth. For this graduation rate, we're looking at the data retrieved from school sites and the accuracy of that reporting data. And that will probably be a crossover and a learning experience also for the new academic auditor in this area as well. So at the last audit meeting, you all had requested an internship. We are in that process, and you'll see that as I discuss our budget piece. This will move forward. I will work with the finance team to provide a program improvement plan based on what I'm providing to you all today to get that internship in-house soon. In theory, it's a part-time employee. And so I have worked with the finance department to come up with these 4 areas. Really, it was the finance department that said, hey, we need this, and so we agreed. And so those key areas have to deal with the concession inventories and school stores inventories, as well as the school processes around those concepts. We're going to look at the game ticket financial and reconciliation process. We have looked at that process before, but it was before it went electronic. So we're going to see that and that impact because there's a good source of revenue that can come in through that process. The inventory, the athletic equipment and cycle cost analysis. Again, what we're doing for the finance department is a non-audit service. We're looking at what is the needs of each athletic area and correlate that to the requirements of the Georgia High School Association's requirements of what type of equipment and really see what we have and don't have. Are we inventorying those items? Where did they go? Just to ensure that we are maintaining and safeguarding those assets, as well as creating a budget cycle to identify what we need in that area. And then, of course, the inventory of transportation maintenance parts that was on the previous will be provided to them as well. Does anybody have any questions?
Are there any questions?
Okay.
Just one point, it's a bit of a happy accident with this not being approved now. That'll let the new superintendent have an opportunity. If she has any additions she'd like to make, we'd certainly entertain those.
Okay.
Otherwise, thank you, Leah.
Okay. We will.
Sorry. Going back to academic audits, are we not auditing special education?
So with the component of the student support services, right now, we are not looking at the department, but with the student support services and that RTI process, we will have to identify some of the resources that in information that the special education department is providing, because there is a potential crossover, but no, there is not a direct review of the special education department at this time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Next item.
All right, so the next item is the program improvement budget. This is what we will be providing to the finance department in order to be provided to the superintendent to sign off on before we move into the final approval with the board. With the internship that we're looking at for a year long, we're potentially looking at a cost of $16,000. And with that, the non-salary would increase by $7,100. Below is to give you an example of why we need to increase our non-salary. And that would be, we want to, in the past, we have not allowed or had the money to really send somebody off to a conference outside beyond maybe Atlanta, but usually Jekyll, somewhere really close we could go, but to really send them off where they would have to fly or some sort to get to attendance. We wanted to add that into our rotation, so you will see that within the travel and staff development, that we bump those areas up to ensure that we at least have one of us rotating at least once a year to one of those conferences, so we can bring back that into our department and gain some insight. As for dues and memberships, again, that's just to cover new employee memberships and supporting associations relevant to the department's needs. And of course, the supplies to adjust for additional employees, such as internship and the academic auditor. And then with the expendable computer, which is the actual computer equipment, we are very secure in that area with our 5-year cycle of replacement of computers, so there's no increase there.
Are there any questions?
No.
I'd just like to make the comment to the president of the board. We sure would hope that the superintendent and board would look favorably on this budget request.
Thank you very much.
This is John Hoskins Brown. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So the budget increase, my first question is it in the tentative budget that we've already seen? And is the dedicated device person also in that budget?
So the internship is not. The academic auditor is. The academic auditor is a vacancy that we maintain in our budget line. We will have to request a new budget line for the internship. So that will be an increase. As of with the budget that you just approved yesterday, no, it was not. Was I able to answer your question, Dr. Hoskins Brown?
Yeah, well, my question was about the device person, not the academic auditor. I know that's been vacant for years, but perhaps I'm moving ahead in the document. There's a recommendation for a device repair servicing person at all schools. So I was wondering if all of the budget recommendations that we're hearing today had already been provided to the budget office for yesterday's tentative budget.
I'm sorry, let me, just as a point of clarification, the item we're reviewing right now is the department's budget, not the follow-ups from the other audits. This is just the intern for the audit department itself.
Right. And so that's I noted that in her answer. But my question, I guess, so I don't have to come back, is all items that are being presented for recommendation to change the budget for next year, has the board gotten those yet?
This is Tanya Run. I can speak to the device person we're talking about. This audit process is still in place, so there have been no recommendations for the budget for next year. This audit is still in place throughout this current upcoming school year.
Right. If we can, if we can stay on the agenda and we get to that item, I think we can review that.
Okay, so for the internship, and the internship has not gone to the board. Is that what you said?
That is correct.
Okay. Is that something that you think you're going to be able to handle via reorganization of current funds, or is that a modification that's going to come?
That will be a modification to come. I have to submit that to the financial department and for them to process through and seek the recommendation, or the approval from the superintendent, and then the recommendation to the board.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All righty. Now we'll move into the actual informational items in our informational meeting.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good
We are
morning.
starting to wrap up our HVAC audit, and I hope to have it done this week after some follow-up conversations with management, and begin writing the report next week. We did find some areas of improvement within the preventative maintenance program that was recently implemented. This includes scheduling of the preventative maintenance tasks, dedicated funding for preventative maintenance, and utilizing the preventative maintenance contracts. We also found some delays when entering purchase orders for emergency requests. And then during our audit, we did review or identify some areas of risk, and when we find areas of risk, we need to make sure that we are looking at that due to our auditing standards. So one area was the inventory of parts removed from schools when they are replaced, and then also the reporting of job duties versus the actions of employees. So as I wrap up this audit, we plan to have the exit conference next month and bring the report back to you at our next meeting in August.
So that final report will come in August?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none.
All right, the next area I will lean towards Tanja to review. This is at the request of the audit committee, was the request to come back in June to give a follow-up on the contract audit that we provided at the last, back in February.
All right, good morning. I'm Tanya Brunn. I'm the Interim Director of Instructional Technology and Media Services, and this is a follow-up on the audit of Chrome devices and our status report on that. For our management action plan, we looked at multiple items, and we came up with three main steps, tiers, if you will. Determine if the labor of the individual conducting the tracking and documenting tasks is aligned with their job description, and if the financial impact warrants a different level employee to conduct such functions to reduce labor costs. This is with regard to our library media technology specialists that we have one at each school. The second piece was to conduct a cost analysis of the FPP. That's the Family Protection Plan that's optional for families to purchase if they're interested for their devices, and go through the full cost analysis of that. The third one, determine if that FPP meets the financial needs of the district to recoup costs incurred by the district, and adjust the plan fee based on analysis, or determine if the financial cost should be absorbed by the district. So the phase one work, we wanted to start with looking at the job of the Library Media Technology Specialist, the LMTS. And we were looking at determining if the labor of the individual conducting the tracking and documenting task, the LMTS, is aligned with their job description. And so what we did with the MAP evaluation, the first step, the LMTS has collected device management daily time allotment for a 2-week time period. We had very specific criteria of what their jobs were with the device maintenance, and we had a whole spreadsheet that each LMTS completed with the times explained how much time they did in each of those areas. Then I compiled the LMTS data to identify the average daily time allotment that they were spending on device management specifically. Then lastly, evaluate the current LMTS job description to see the correlation between the job description and the actual daily job performance and tasks. I'm not going to read through all of the duties and responsibilities of the LMTS. There are 15 listed in our official job description. But as a summary of those, I broke it down into areas. So the biggest area in our job description at 50% is reading, promotion, and information access. That is the primary job for the LMTS. Then at 30% is library administration, all the different things involved with that. And then at 20% is instructional technology. So that is what the job description says that LMTSs should be doing on a daily basis. The current daily time allotment based on our data collection is 56.3% is library administration, reading promotion, instructional technology, and information access, and roughly 43.8% on one-to-one device management. As you can see also, one-to-one device management is 0% on the current job description. So phase one findings. LMTSs are spending roughly 3.5 hours of an 8-hour day, 43.8%, on device management tasks. Some of these are much greater, some of these a little bit lower depending on the school, but that is the average. The second thing, device management tasks are not included in the LMTS job description. 20% of the job description includes instructional technology-related tasks, but device management and maintenance is a technical task, not an instructional technology task. And lastly, LMTSs are not able to successfully manage the other parts of their jobs, including reading promotion, information access, library management, and instructional technology due to the high time commitment needed for device management and maintenance. So draft recommendations. Problem identified. LMTSs are spending almost 50% of their workday on management of one-to-one student devices, while this area is not addressed in their job description, including necessary education and skills. Proposed solution. Each school will require a dedicated person that focuses on portable student learning device support and management. Specific functions needed: power washing, resetting devices, device upkeep and maintenance, device testing readiness checks, input and processing of technology help tickets, student and staff login and access issues, and addressing other technical concerns as needed. Questions?
Yeah, could you go back to that last slide, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Wow. So the way it is now, we're expecting our media people to do all these things?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay.
Any other questions?
So, all right, the way
Richard.
Sorry, I'm loud anyway, but the way I understand this, all right, so will you go back about 2 slides? Did you say they're spending about 3.5 hours a day?
Yes, sir.
So if the idea is to propose a new dedicated person, would that dedicated person have additional duties? Because if we're just looking at 3.5, or do we think that 3.5 is kind of an understated?
3.5 is only related to the portable student learning devices, Chromebooks. This is only a Chromebook audit. This is not looking at the amount of time the LMTS has spent fixing computers on campus, going to help teachers with technical issues, fixing copiers. There are a lot of other things that our team does that are not included in this audit.
And we don't have any idea of the estimated time for that?
I mean,
It sounds like a
honestly-
lot. That's what I'm trying to get at is it sounds more, because if you just
Yes.
look at this, it looks like 3.5. But the reality is this dedicated student learning person would be doing a lot more than just these 3.5 hours for the Chromebooks.
Absolutely, and for the scope of this actual audit, it was purely on Chromebooks.
Okay.
So we didn't dive into the other. I would be very interested in the statistics on that as well. But we do almost any technical thing on the campus. We are involved in some way, shape, or fashion with that process because we're there. We're knowledgeable and we're resourceful, but that is something else that we certainly could look at is what other type of technical jobs we are doing throughout the day.
Well, that would kind of be the next question in favor of this proposed solution. In the LMTS is, if you will, they're probably not going to be as technical as what the proposal would be for this dedicated person. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is that the thought behind it?
Yes, LMTSs are going to be instructional technology specialists. They're not going to be hardware technicians or your typical technical people.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions from the phone bank?
This is Dr. Hopkins Brown. I just have a comment. I can certainly see how there has been work because when devices aren't working, it doesn't matter who's supposed to do it or whether they're supposed to get them to the technical support over on at Savannah Arts. The reality is it doesn't work, and so we're going to the people who are able to be responsive. So I applaud the staff who have been doing it, even though it's not part of their official duties, for that commitment. That one person at each building is still going to be swamped. There's still going to be greater demand, I think, than one person per building is going to be able to do, just because of the nature of the use of technology and how things go wrong with it. So I look forward to seeing how this recommendation is going to advance, what the costs are like, and then what alternatives there are. Has your team talked with Mr. Ray in terms of what this would look like in terms of distribution of personnel?
No, we are still just going through the audit process and going through our management action plan. We haven't looked at the next steps of what that looks like. We're looking at all the issues and then trying to make proposals based on the issues that we find.
Thank you. I understand. And this will be challenging because what is needed is highly needed by everybody and needs to be highly compensated. People who do this kind of support are in demand at all institutions that rely heavily on instructional technology. So I'm thinking universities, it's hard to keep people who are good at doing this, and therefore they have to be paid well. And I'm a little concerned about what this looks like in terms of a price tag. But I'm very eager to find relief for the staff who have been doing it and find solutions that maybe we can model to do this well going forward.
Thank you. I just have two questions. So when you did the survey, what was the data set? Was it a sample or was it all the schools?
All the schools.
Okay. All right. And the other thing, I guess, is, to the price tag point, it sounds to me like what in effect happened is now we need an IT help desk at every school. And as Kofi Annan once said about the U.S. soldier, he's the wrong person for the job, but he's the only one that can do it. And that's how it fell to the LMTS, right? Is that basically what's happened?
Well, long story short, COVID happened, one-to-one device management happened, and LMTSs were instructional technology specialists, and we're very comfortable with, being resourceful, being helpful, and using our expertise to manage what was a crazy time, but we managed it extremely well. And now with the growth of technology, every day is growing more and more, we need help. And that's where we're at this point is we've been managing, but now we've really identified that we're going to need help to keep growing with the ever-growing needs of instructional technology and hardware technology in our schools.
Right. And there's probably some company, and I hate to say that as a former government contractor, but there's probably some contractor out there that would love to help.
I'm sure.
All right, anything else? Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
very much.
I'll echo Dr. Hoskins-Brown's comments. Thank you to the LMTSs that are doing all this great work.
Thank you.
I'm sure my children have taken advantage of those services.
I'm sure.
All right, the next area is the introduction to the academic auditor. We have now fulfilled this position. Jack O'Connor is his name. If he would stand up and so we introduce him. This is Jack O'Connor. He has worked in the field of education for over 15 years in a variety of roles. He has a doctorate degree in educational leadership from Liberty University and a master's degree in special education from Simmons University. Jack is also a board-certified behavioral analyst for over 10 years. Prior to joining SCCPSS, he spent the past 8 years as an administrator at the Matthew Reardon Center for Autism, first as their school director and later as the organization's president and CEO. During his time at the Matthew Reardon Center for Autism, Jack oversaw substantial growth of the organizational school program, coordinated practicum students, and negotiated and administrative contracts with public and private entities. He has an extensive experience in staff training and supervision, data analysis, and special education policies and regulations. Jack has presented multiple conference workshops on IEP development and proactive classroom management and has developed specific trainings for a variety of community groups over the years. In addition to his school-based work, Jack has provided behavioral services and support to children and adults in home, clinical, and community settings. Jack lives in Rincon with his wife and 2 daughters. He's originally from Massachusetts and has lived in Savannah area for close to 10 years. Jack is an avid sports fan and enjoys spending time with his family in and around Savannah outside of work. And he's excited to join us today. So thank you, Jack, for attending today, and we'll look forward to getting that approval next month at the board meeting.
Well, Jack, come forward and shake our hand and let's welcome him.
Jack O'Connor from Massachusetts is here.
Yeah, very glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is
you.
practice, Jack, because at the board meeting, this might happen to you too.
And I think given some of our findings in our risk surveys, I think Jack's background is uniquely suited to really help us and move the district forward. So we're excited to have you. All Massachusetts Jack O'Connor jokes aside. Next item.
All right, the next item is I'll just push the two together, the internal audit benchmark report and final status. This is the area of which we bring to you once a year. We provided, so you can see our department spending to the district spending. Our goal is always to make sure that our expenditures are less than 1% of the district's expenditures, and that our range of is between the 1,500 to 2,000 mark, and so we're still aligned with that. I think even with the increase of the budget that we're having, we're still not going to drain the services of the district as much. Our goal is to make sure that our value is found in our reports with little impact to the financial burden of the district. I'm really excited to show you the next area where you see the audit committee member growth. As you can see, prior in fiscal 22, 50% of the governing body, and that would be of the board members, made up our audit committee, with 33% being the other heavy part of attorneys. So now, as you can see in 2023, we have spread that across, and we now have a good spread of a governing body, a retired or current educator, a business professional, as well as individuals within the accounting and auditing area, as well as attorneys. So we're really excited about that growth in our audit committee. The next area, this is where we just show where our activities lie over the past 4 years in the distribution of time. So if anybody has any questions of that, I will. No questions?
Are there any questions?
Yeah, I just looked at this and I noticed on the number of days, we're up to 649.
We
Is it-
are short one, because this was as of May, I'm sorry, thank you for letting me correct that. So this is as of May 30th, so it's not a full year. When you look at the end of the final status, you will see where we did an adjustment at the end from the 649 to the 714 as an adjustment to what we are doing in June. So, yeah. So there is that slight difference, but we're still in line with some of the pattern of it being more non-audit services than audit, but with the hiring of the new auditor as well as the a new academic auditor and the potential intern that we can acquire that will increase those audit time. But for our new members, do we have any questions for the non-audit areas if you need me to clarify that? Okay. So this provides the distribution of time showing the direct to indirect. Indirect is not all those other activities that we conduct. So our goal, our performance objective is to get 50-50. That's not always the case, but at least within 5 to 10% of each other is really what we're trying to get at. Last year, our goal was to fill the academic auditor position. This has been completed. And our goal was to streamline processes to eliminate work paper related tasks. That as auditing standards, we have to reference everything. We have to, for everything that is in an audit report, we have a work paper to show evidence to support that statement. And in that process, you have to document and cross-document, and when you get that in paper form, that can take a bigger time than just doing a stamp electronically and doing it for you. So we've streamlined that process a little better, and we're still adhering to our standards in our quality assurance process for that. So we're excited about that as well. Does anybody have any questions of that area? So then the status report just shows where we're at. One of the key things, again, like we noticed before, there's more non-audit services than audit services, but we're going to shift with that. As you can see in the board audit committee, there was an increase in the Q3 when it comes to time. That wasn't audit committee meetings, that was more board meetings, and that was due to the shift of our internal audit assistant. Our role is to support the superintendent's office as well as the board office in need of people to conduct public meetings. And in that case, by that time, one of the secretaries had retired, and so to fill that, we had an individual in support. So that is where that increased number comes into play. As for ethics hotline stuff, we're still in line with that, with a little above, but that is due to the ethical leadership training class that that actually Bernadette Ball Oliver got to see and participate in. So we are, my position in working with the HR department is conducting that training, so that has increased. What we thought was a 1.5-hour meeting has turned into almost a 3-hour event, but that's okay. We're getting great feedback. And so we're really excited to continue that to next year. So that will be part of that increase. Anybody have any questions of any other areas?
Mr. Moss, we getting our 15 days back here in Q3? Is that a credit? I can put that in the
Nice.
ledger.
Nice.
All right. No, thank you. Any other questions? Any questions from the phone bank? Okay. Well, since we're not in an official meeting, we don't need a motion to adjourn. But I thank everyone for attending and thank the staff and welcome Jack on board and looking forward to seeing everybody in August. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.